Thank you for joining XROM, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Arindam Dey, who was a lecturer at the University of Queensland, and his focus was on mixed reality, empathic computing, and human-computer interaction. He has founded and directed the Empathic XR and Pervasive Computing Lab, and it's currently the user experience research scientist at Meta, working with the health and safety team. So, Arindam, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. This is something which I do with all my guests. A brief intro and introduction from your side would be really cool.
Great. Thank you so much, Eddie, for inviting me. I have been following your podcast for some time. It's really, really interesting. And thanks for inviting me again. So about me, I have been studying computer science since about 2000. I started my education here in Kolkata and then moved to Australia for my Ph.D. when I was first got introduced to augmented reality. So my PhD was mainly focusing on handheld augmented reality. If you take your phone out in open space, then how can you use it, and how can you show buildings which are occluded? So all this type of thing, mostly focusing on perception and general human interaction things. Then it's about 2009. Since then, I've been working on different aspects of AR, VR in my various postdocs that I have done, mostly in Australia and some part in the US. Then I started my postdoc with Mark Billinghurst at the University of South Australia, when I got introduced to empathic computing, which basically changed the way I do my research and I think about XR in general. And it was, and since then I'm focusing on that and my lab at UQ, which I joined in 2008 as a lecturer, and now I'm there as honorary position. I have my research group there. They are also working on empathic computing and how we can use human emotion, cognition to understand the state of the user and use that into XR applications. So that's what I've been doing. And now I'm at Meta, where, like you said, I work with the health and safety team as a research scientist.
As someone who's been, at the forefront of the research of AR, VR, or MR, you mentioned AR specifically with mobile AR. What do you think are the challenges and the opportunities that you have faced, from your side? So maybe talk about the challenges and also talk about the opportunities.
When I started my PhD, and the main challenge that we had at that time is the engineering problems of how to enable AR, VR in a way that people can actually use it. I remember when I started my journey as a PhD student, I had a big head-mounted display that is tethered with a cable, and that you need really to have to hold it. So it's really big, from a company in Japan. And then we have moved into all these wireless head-mounted displays that actually really is making things go forward to the consumer market. So that's one of the challenges that we had in terms of displays, and then also all the services and softwares that actually will power up this entire ecosystem of AR, VR that was lacking. So mainly it was engineering problem. But now we have come to a point where those engineering problems are mostly solved. Yes, of course, you can make things better, but they're at a stage when people can actually use it reliably, safely. But now the challenge is why we will use it, what we will use it for, right? So what is the purpose that it is going to solve? I guess the challenge now for the entire industry is not the technology, but the use case, right? And there's an entire, all the researchers, we are working on healthcare domain, we are working in construction, education, entertainment, and an areas that people are focusing on, but we haven't really figured out where using XR in general makes sense. And when I say XR, then you also have within that mixed reality technologies. We have augmented reality, we have virtual reality. All of those will have their own use cases, But we as an industry and as an academic body, we need to really find that killer opportunity in terms of use case. We will get there, but that's the challenge now. And then the opportunity is this entire technology is at a very early stage. If you look at from the consumer point of view, it is just going into the market. So there is a big opportunity there for this technology to be used and change people's lives, because people are just using it now mostly for gaming, that people are really using it for. There are many other companies who are focusing on different other use cases like productivity, and then some companies working it to create funny videos, and all of those things are really getting that into the mass market, where people are really knowing, oh, this is AR, this is VR, that's what I'm going to do. And so that is there, but there is a big opportunity to change their lives in a much better way using this technology. So I guess that's what I'm looking for.
The transition from us from that, I think you need something as compelling is not just when we were using these landline phones, and I still remember the first mobile phones happened, and it was like a couple of lakhs at least over here in India, very expensive, and only the rich people could have it. And everybody thought, why would anybody move on to a mobile? And I think what happened was the game change was Apple, the creating the applications. It was not just the calling and messaging, the applications around it, which today we cannot do without, right from your GPS to your buying things and, doing business. So I guess we need that compelling application to come, and the price points to go down really, so that it becomes affordable, not just for enterprise, but also for consumers. Because yes, we're seeing a couple of really good use cases for enterprise and the gaming space, but to go down to the consumers, I think either it's got to go like really, really low, or maybe I think a game changer needs to happen where it becomes completely free, and the business model is largely on the data, and that's, I think, should be the future roadmap of these head wearable devices, where the headset itself is free, but via data you monetize. But I mean, if this is like the far out future, if we go into something, a future like that, what could be the downside? Because through the course of conversation you are mentioning, because through this interface that we are changing, from a mobiles to a head wearable device, we'll be able to understand human emotion. We'll be able to understand where the human is looking. We'll also possibly be able to understand human cognition itself through possibly, leveraging BCI sort of and things like that. What are the pros and cons of a world like this, where we have a device which is so pervasive and is everywhere? What could be the opportunity as well as the downsides?
Yes, that's a very, very good hypothetical situation. I'm sure we'll go there at some point. And when we get there, I believe one of the big challenge will be to make sure how we protect the privacy of users, and how do we make sure that if you have those contact lenses, and how do we know that a person is wearing an AR contact lens or really just normal contact lens, right? If you have glasses on, how do we know that this glass is actually a normal glass, but not an AR glass that can record you? So those things will be a bit of a challenge to handle. And from both a privacy point of view, from legal point of view, and also from technology point of view, how do we enable that understanding? So that's one thing. The other thing is, which I find with mobile phones nowadays, that most of the time we spend in mobile phones, we are so dependent on it that we have actually stopped communicating with people in the real world. We are mostly focusing on the mobile phone itself. So I believe there needs to be a balance where you use these technologies for a particular reason, and then for other reasons you use something else, or you just communicate in person with people. So those things are there. But then from the opportunity point of view, that can actually revolutionize the way people interact and the way they find their ways, the way they know about another person, so the way they search for information, the way they consume information, and do business online, all of these things will be changed. And that's a big push there that I believe as an industry, both academics and industrial body, we're all working together to find out how these technologies can be used to revolutionize the way people live now and communicate with each other. So there is a big opportunity there, but while we do that, we need to be careful about all those aspects of mostly around privacy and security. And there are also opportunities for looking into the safety of those users, right? Because that's another thing when you have everybody wearing a kind of display and they're getting information. So we need to understand how their day-to-day activities are affected by that, and could there be any safety issues there. And again, this is another area of work that many companies are doing, many many universities are working on. So I'm pretty sure we will get to that point where it is safe, secure, private, and change the way people really interact with the world, with the information that they have. So I'm quite looking forward to that.
Right. So you mentioned that, today how we have become over dependent on digital technology, especially mobiles, nobody cannot do without. And you said that, hopefully, your wish is that, in the future, maybe they'll use it in a way where they're not so over dependent onto these technologies. But I guess we living in a world where humanity is on a constant race, either on understanding more knowledge, because the knowledge, the information gives you opportunity to create more businesses, connect with people and stuff like that. So we are in a constant rush or race to consume more content. So I don't really think or don't know of a scenario, of any scenario where the world is become cognizant of over dependence on any technology, because I guess we are constantly trying to acquire the best. And I think even the nations are constantly trying to get a technology which gives them an undue advantage over the other. So I don't really know if we can find that little balance, but I hope that humans, we understand that tech as a tool should be leveraged for personal growth as well as a societal growth, because so far I think Web 2.0 has been extremely hierarchical, and the business has been profit at any cost, where we have manipulated and hoarded others' data. But here is the opportunity of Web 3.0 and Metaverse, which can completely, change that language, go towards decentralization, interoperable, open. So maybe talk to us about that safety and health issue. How do we create these AR, VR, MR glasses which can be safe, can be reliable, and could be good for the users?
Well, that really is a big area. So as an individual, like computer scientist, we understand the technology a lot more, but then we need to understand the human from very fundamental levels, how our vision work, how our navigation work, how we perceive information when we are on the go. So a lot of those things need to be studied well. We need to work with those experts to tell us that where they think something can have a higher risk in terms of health and safety versus where it is easier or it is okay for people to use it. In general, AR, VR, MR are safe, but then again, there could still be cases that are not as safe as the other discussed, and how we need to understand what we can do in those situations. Right. One of the things that my PhD students are working on at UQ is to understand their cognitive load and emotional state in real time, using various machine learning technologies and measuring their heart rate, galvanic skin response, their EEG signals and everything, trying to make a sense of that. And then if we see that someone's cognitive load is going high, or someone is getting a bit agitated or depressed or angry in a particular situation, we can then use that understanding to adapt the interface in a way that they feel calm, they feel in a like optimal state of activity. So that's what we are researching on at the University of Queensland with my PhD students. So, and there are many other people who are working on adaptive technologies and many other ways how we can make people interact with them safely. The other side around health and safety that we also need to consider, most of the time we say that people use VR, MR mostly with the controllers. So we assume people have their hands and they can interact with it, but it may not always be the case. All right, so we need to think how we can include people who have accessibility needs, how we can make this technology more accessible, right? And when we do that, we also need to understand, because people with special needs have different needs for safety and health. So that's another area that we need to focus on. So yeah, this is a great and very important area to work on, and I'm quite hopeful that we will basically make these technologies safer for the users.
Now, obviously, the big topic is the metaverse, and everybody seems to be talking about it. But there's no consensus whatsoever. But I think it's fair enough because it's in such an early stage. If you had to describe what the metaverse is, what you would say, and when and what would it require to build, the metaverse that we all talk about: persistent, immersive, interoperable, decentralized. How do we get there?
Yeah, that's a very interesting area. Actually, we are working on these days. Metaverse has become suddenly, over the last few years, people are really talking about metaverse, and many people have different opinion about it. For me personally, I see metaverse is a virtual world. It's not just VR. It can be a mixed reality. It can be augmented reality, virtual reality, everything, where you can actually do anything that you can do now in real world. You'll be able to do that in that virtual world. So including you can do business there, you can interact with people there, you can do your daily work there. So anything that you can think of in your real world now, you'll be able to do that in metaverse. But now what we are at a very basic stage to build those technologies. So we have those individual components. It's now more of a challenge how to put them together. Right, and many people or many companies have their own individual metaverse that they talk about, but that interoperability that you have talked about, that's quite important. So I am an individual. I may not want to be a part of all of those each individual metaverses, but if I can easily move between them, that will be a big thing, because some of them may offer something unique that others don't provide, so I may want to access those. So those areas are quite interesting. How do we make that happen? How we can have sort of a consistent way of operation in there, right? A sort of a standard of metaverse that all companies or practitioners, like even academics, use, right? If you want to do business there, what kind of currency you are going to use? There are many things that need to be addressed and understood before we actually get there. I see it as a big opportunity, both for industry and academia to work on and identify those technological challenges, how to enable that. And also there are some more perceptual and emotional challenges there as well that we have in real world too, right? We get into people who we don't like, or we get into people who we find a bit difficult to deal with. So that can also happen in metaverse. We can go to a shop to buy something we may not like the way they have displayed their store there. So how do we sort of process that information? How do we handle ourselves in those situations that is not favorable to us? So those challenges will also be there, so that we need to also address. Right. So yeah, it's a big area, and I'm quite excited that we are going there. But at the same time, I am cautious that if we really try to do too much at once, we may actually affect ourselves in a bad way as a group, as an industry, as academics. So we probably need to be a bit more careful about all those smaller aspects that can go wrong there, and need to have a plan how to address those. Otherwise, it will become a hype, and then the bubble will burst. So we need to be careful on that aspect as well.
Right. I mean, that's so profound, and I hope all the listeners, who are listening need to, take that and hold it, that this technology is completely disruptive. It can completely upend the way we do education, healthcare, entertainment, work, and anything and everything, because what we're doing is building possibly like a virtual world where in possibly maybe the next 30-50 years, where it could be a second home. Everybody will spend more time over there. In fact, my son already goes to a metaverse first school. So yes, these technologies are so profound. We need to tread carefully, because there's so much to learn, and we need to take these baby steps and make sure that what we are building is beneficial for everyone and doesn't have these unforeseen results which could completely disrupt the consumers or the users. Can you explain what empathic computing is, and how do you see human computer interaction changing and impacting businesses and consumers?
Right. Yeah, sure. That's basically an area that we have been working on for some years now. So empathy in general is like putting yourselves into others' shoes, so you understand how the other person is feeling. That's empathy in general, in the way we understand it. In terms of this empathy computing, we are trying to do the same thing. We're trying to understand the user, the collaborator, using various kinds of sensors, physiological, neurophysiological sensors, and then try to understand their emotional state, their cognitive state, and use that understanding into the computer interface to either communicate that feeling, that emotional state, that cognitive state to the collaborators, or adapt the interface in a way that can make people use that interface more effectively, more positively. So that's overall the premise of empathy computing, where we can understand the user, collaborators, and everybody who are using the interface, and then use that understanding to do something positive into that interface. So now, if you want to talk about where we see it can be used, so that's basically many ways we can use it. If you imagine when you're So I was thinking one day I was in our campus at University of Queensland. That's a beautiful campus. And I was hoping if my parents, who were in India at that time, they could see and feel the joy I have when I saw those, those jacaranda bloom and everything. But they were not there, right? Or they couldn't really understand. Even if they were, they wouldn't know how I was feeling. So to communicate that feeling with them in that situation is something that we cannot do. But imagine if you have empathy computing, where that understanding, your emotional state, your joy, can be communicated to the other person. That will be very, very profound. So they would know how you are feeling. Similarly, if you think of in a classroom setup, right? Most of our classroom, most of our teaching are like one size fits all. So we have a big class, we do some kind of teaching, and we're done with it. But if we knew that how a particular student is feeling, there are students who need more support, or there are other students who doesn't need support and finding this lecture to be very boring. So how do we know that? In current situation, we don't do anything much about it. in generally speaking. But if with empathy computing, you can have that understanding, so you can provide extra support to a particular student, or if you see as a class overall how the emotional state is for that class, and then you can adapt your lecturing in that way. Same thing for patient-doctor relationship. So overall, there are many use cases where understanding other person can really help us provide a better service to them. And that's the opportunity there.
Right. Arindam, can you elaborate a little bit more and possibly simplify it? You say, okay, understanding, human emotion, cognition. How do you do that? I mean, is that through glasses? How do you do that? Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure. We mostly use different kind of physiological sensors like heart rate sensor, galvanic skin response that basically measures your skin conductance. We can also use EEG devices that measures your brain waves. And all of those data, and you can also use pupil dilation or many other pupillometry, eye tracking data. So all of these things together can predict how a person is feeling at certain point in time, right? And then we are creating models to make that understanding better. So there are many studies in neurology, in psychology, that tells us how these physiological markers vary based on what people are seeing and feeling. But most of those studies do sort of post-processing to make that understanding. But the challenge that we need to do it in real time. So that's the technology that we are focusing on. But yes, we generally use sensors to get that understanding.
Right. When do you see these consumer-facing devices become a reality? And once we have these kind of devices, which does all these readings, human reading, what would give me an example of a specific industry? What would the education or healthcare look like? Maybe paint a picture so that, the listeners, at least in the education and healthcare, can be ready and think about, in that lines.
Yes, in general, I feel that personalization is going to be a big thing. So artificial intelligence and understanding people's state and doing something about it is going to be the next big thing. Now, most of our devices are, like I said, one size fits all. It doesn't really take into account how you use it or how you're feeling when you're using it. So that understanding can actually help providers to cater a particular interface to the real-time need of the user. If we talk about healthcare, right, we can think of if when people are consulting, right, I normally see doctors are giving me a lot of jargons and I don't really understand what they're talking about. I say, okay, what is wrong with me? Fix me. So that's the thing. But they keep on saying that various medical terms, but I don't understand them. But if the doctor knew that how I'm feeling, I mean, they of course know that when you are at a doctor's place, you're of course not in the best, the best emotional state. But how can they provide that information in a way based on how I consume it, what kind of state of mind I have at that point in time? That would be very, very useful. Same for in the surgery situations when there are trainers who you have a surgeon and then they're teaching other budding doctors about the procedure. There may be someone who doesn't really understand it properly, or who may get a bit overwhelmed seeing the blood and everything. And there are so many things that can go wrong at that place. But if you knew that how people are perceiving that information and is there anyone who needs extra help, you can really provide that help and make it better for everyone. Same in education, like I said, if we have a course content and people are really doing it in VR or another way, they're consuming that information, they're learning there. And if we see that their cognitive load is really high to a point when they're not really learning anymore, they really get challenged to a point that it's detrimental. So learning, that we need to keep a bit of a challenge there so people actually grow and learn, but we need to also understand where the balance is. So if we see that the case, then we can probably provide them a bit a little easier challenge there, or explain the same information in a bit more easier way. That way, I think the learning can improve and be more effective. So this is just a couple of examples, but we can really use that in similar way in many cases, in manufacturing, in entertainment as well, right? If you think of gaming, and if there is a horror game and people are really afraid of that to a point that they can actually get quite upset about it, then you can probably do something in the game that it is not as scary to them, right? So those kind of things can be done there. Or if a game is very easy for a person, so you can probably increase the complexity so they feel challenged and they keep on playing the game. So yeah, there are many ways that we can use that understanding to make that interface more efficient.
So what I hear from you is that, these future devices, or the, us moving on to, from the mobiles to these future devices, from carrying technology to wearing technology, these technologies are not just going to be these devices which lets you augment things or experience things. It's also going to have like these EEG devices which kind of reads or cognitive data, possibly eye tracking, which and face tracking, which kind of understands where we are looking at, or facial expression, so on and so forth. And through these learnings, the algorithm behind the AI will kind of understand us better, understand our human cognition, human emotion, which will help us create the future of healthcare. Possibly, maybe the health data will be of a human will be much better, because we'll then go reactive to proactive to a world which is more precision medicine, where it'll be more precision. And even the education space, it'll be more of personalized, because you'll be able to understand every student rather than, those 50 students, where the teacher doesn't kind of understand what a specific student is doing. Now, tell me the role of these technologies in it. Maybe also talk about specifically the role of AI, because today I think with Chat GPT-3 and these prompts-based image text to image generation, I think the entire world is being completely upended, especially the creators. So how all of these converging tech stack going to impact
aspects as well? That's really an excellent question, because there's so many individual components there that will make metaverse a real thing that people will actually spend time in. It cannot just be AR or VR. It needs to be all of those technology, all of those understandings, and with the generative AI that we are seeing now having a big boom, but the work has been going on for some time now in this technology. So that will definitely be useful to personalize a lot of things from the understanding of a user base, some of their past data. We can probably predict a lot of things that people can do or want to do or will do in real time, and then cater the interface in a way that helps them more. So yeah, that's definitely AI and machine learning. Those things are going to play a big role in the success of AI as a technology and the services we provide. But at the same time, as we all know, like all of the technologies depend on the training data that those models are built on. So we also need to be careful about those things, that when we provide that information, it is actually going to help our users, that it's not sort of created based on a bad data set, or it is not used by bad actors to mislead users. So these technologies are promising, these technologies are really helpful, but all of those any technology have those challenges, that how people really actually use it. All right, so we also need to be a bit careful about that.
Right. Any advice to students or entrepreneurs?
For students, I can talk about that, because I spent some time in academia and have a few students. So I would say that focus on the users, right? And try to understand what is going on with them and try to create technology that actually helps users and helps the society. Because that's how I understand. I'm not really a technology person who builds in artificial intelligence or builds computer vision. So those things are really important for AR, VR in general. But as an HCI scientist, my focus has always been on the users, how we put users first and technology behind them to support, right? But I have seen people think of the technology first. Okay, here is the solution. Now let's go find the problem. That oftentimes doesn't really help. It may get you a PhD, but it may not be very helpful for the society. But if you start with the user first, understand what problems you're trying to solve for them, for the society, and then think where XR can help or how you can leverage various other technologies together with you, XR, to push that, to solve that problem, is what going to really be helpful for you as a student to go forward, and also for the society to have profound impact from your research. So that will be my suggestion to them. Yeah.
My last question is, the same question which I kind of ask everyone, so somebody who's been invested in the space for the longest time, from the academy to right now, in one of the largest company, what would you have to, say if you had to like paint a picture of the next 10 years, what would Metaverse look like and how it will help the common people, the users, the businesses, the enterprise, the government?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm very optimistic about Metaverse being used by so many people and changing their lives. So you can think of how we consume information today. That is totally going to change when we actually go into Metaverse and start using it in a way that where you can communicate with people and you sort of have them virtually there in front of you, right? And it can also support your users who are there with you, who are far away in another country. So it can create that inclusion of people in a very effective way that you can perceive well. It can increase your experience in various ways, and also for shopping. And you can really now will be able to see that in 3D, like you can do in real stores. So the way overall we talk about information, we consume information, we make decisions will totally change when Metaverse is there. And I'm very, very optimistic that it will get to that point for sure, and people will use it and use it in a positive way. We need to be cautious about bad actors. We need to be cautious about making it safe, making it perceptually correct for users. Those things will happen, and I'm very sure that as an industry, as an academic body, we are working on it, and those problems will be solved, and Metaverse is going to be a very successful thing in the years to come.
Thank you, Arindam. Really appreciate you taking time being part of the podcast. Yes, I think we're living in an exciting point in time, because I think the way we do business, the way we learn, the way we play, the way we work, I think everything is going to change completely. To the middle of the conversation, I was mentioning how my son, who was in a physical school, has moved on to a Metaverse first school, and so there's a lot of pros and there's some cons also, and that's the way it is for any new technologies. The pros are that he can earlier he used to wake up at around 6:30 in the morning, 7:30 the bus used to come. Yeah, the bus used to take maybe 40 minutes to go to the school, or and the school would be a couple of hours. Again, the bus would come back, 45 minutes to an hour, Bombay traffic, and the entire day would have gone. He would come in exhausted and sleep the rest of the day. Today, he gets up in the morning and he just wears something and he's front of the computer and he's in doing this online school, which is India's first Metaverse school. And the benefits are that there's no carbon footprint. And I think eventually in the next possibly couple of years, he will be sitting with his students who could be from any parts of India or different parts of geography, because the world, because the school even today has students not just from India but from places as far as Malaysia and UAE in the same time zone. So I think we moving into an exciting point of time where instead of us going to the school or the healthcare or work, that will come to us. And that immersive platform, the Metaverse, will completely upend the way we do businesses. And it's an exciting space. I think in the next few years, those opportunities will open up. Keep on doing what you're doing. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, then please press the subscribe button. And until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you, Arindam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eddie. Thanks for inviting me. And it was great chatting to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.